Davie's COVID-19 Breakdown, Episode 1, Procurement. As COVID-19 carved its insidious path around the world, initially, I must confess I wasn't too worried. I was sure that being an island, being one of the world's leading nations would mean that the UK would not be too badly hit. But as it crept nearer and nearer and it became clear to me how inadequate the UK response was going to be, I started to keep tabs on it. I wasn't sure why at the time, but now I've started this vlog, it seems it did have a purpose. I've tried covering the whole debacle in one video and, well, it just takes too long. So I'm going to talk on each issue, how I see it, how it has gone. Feel free to weigh in the comments. I was hoping to save this until the coronavirus pandemic had passed, but as you all know, it's still ongoing. The UK government mismanagement of it keeps growing new arms and legs, and sadly, too many of us have not made it or will not make it through. My heart goes out to families and friends of colleagues, of the people who haven't made it so far. Over 40,000 lost souls, mothers, fathers, husbands, sons, daughters. It's absolutely heartbreaking. I'd like to place on record my sincerest thanks to the nation's heroes. Whilst that's largely the magnificent staff of our National Health Service, I'd also extend that to other emergency services, the hundreds of thousands of people who volunteered to help the NHS, the workers who kept our vital services running, the bin men, the shop workers, and of course the volunteers, who of their own initiative started groups to look after the vulnerable in their own communities. You truly are the backbone of our country, and we all owe you a great debt. Many of you probably want to thank our leaders for guiding us through this crisis, but I'd ask you to hold on to that thought. I've seen a lot of people comment that Boris Johnson and his government are doing a great job during the COVID-19 crisis. You are, of course, free to hold that opinion, and free to do so for whichever reason is dearest to you. There is, of course, a big difference between opinion and fact. Opinions are debatable, so I'll separate them. Expert opinions. If an expert gives an opinion, it should have its basis in their expertise, and therefore, in fact, it should be listened to and lent great credence. Even though the chances are very low, it could still be wrong. You also have to examine who is paying the expert and any agendas that they may have. Non-expert opinions can be right, but that's usually down to luck rather than good judgment, because usually they're wrong. A lot of them tend to have their basis in emotions, feelings, hunches, and uninformed thinking. So people should always be skeptical of non-expert opinions. They have a very, very high chance of being wrong. In layman's terms, opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one, and they all stink a bit. Some spew forth more shite than others. Facts, well, they're a whole different kettle of fish, because they're always correct. The downside about facts is they're dispassionate, and they don't care whose positions they support or whose feelings they hurt. Now, personally, I don't feel at all like thanking Boris for his leadership. I'm of the opinion that he and the government he leads botched this response from day one. It has already cost many, many lives, and will cost us many more before this nightmare is over. Now, I'm often asked, why can't you just get behind Boris and say something positive? So I will. I have been impressed by Rishi Sunak. Thrust into the Chancellor's job unexpectedly, he has excelled, and he's ensured that money was available for this massive effort. I just wish I could say the same about his colleagues, or even his boss. The format for these episodes will be as follows. I'll build a bit of narrative, state a few key facts, give my opinion based on said facts, and ask any questions which I believe we should all be asking. At the end, there will be a summary. Today, we'll dissect procurement. Ventilators. We were told that the NHS needed 25,000 medical ventilators to cope with the crisis. Luckily, we had two sources who could have started delivering them really quickly. Firstly, we had EU central procurement, which we still could have taken part in during the transition period. We also had a UK supplier called Direct Access, who could have delivered 5,000 a week for 5 weeks. They were so certain that the UK government would want them that they reserved them on our behalf and then contacted the government using 3 separate channels. None of these supply deals were taken up, and this was blamed on communication errors. Unfortunately, by the time both of these communication errors were discovered, it was too late. The 25,000 machines Direct Access had reserved had been bought by another, more well-prepared country. Dyson, of the vacuum cleaners, was awarded a contract to build 10,000 medical ventilators, but they'd never built a medical ventilator before, and they would still need to be tested, approved before they could be deployed. Estimated delivery for the Dyson ventilators was June. JCB had a look to see if they could help, but as of today, no agreement or commitment was ever reached. JCB, like Dyson, had never built a medical ventilator before. Facts. Both JCB and Dyson are Tory donors and Brexit supporters. On the 1st of April, we heard that 30 ventilators, not Dyson ones, would be delivered the following week. That's 4,970 less than we could have had. On Monday, the 20th of April, a senior civil servant, Sir Simon MacDonald, said that the decision not to take up the EU procurement supply was a political decision. Within 5 hours of stating that to a Common Select Committee, he wrote a retraction letter and apology. The Dyson order was then cancelled on the 24th of April. Opinion, mine, based on said facts. The EU procurement and Direct Access deals between them could have started ventilators arriving immediately, and the NHS could have been fully supplied by the end of April. Both Dyson and JCB are fine companies, and I'm sure that given time, research, etc., they could manufacture medical ventilators, but we were told we didn't have that time. I don't believe that Sir Simon MacDonald misspoke. I believe he was made to write the retraction letter by Acting Prime Minister Dominic Raab, and I further believe that it was, in fact, a political decision, possibly even one to benefit donors like Dyson. It appeared that this was a massive, fatal and unforgivable misstep. However, we unfortunately found ourselves with no choice but to wait for the new Dyson ventilators. However, later on, the order was cancelled, and to the best of my knowledge, thankfully, the NHS never ended up hitting peak ventilator demand. I also think it's not a coincidence that the companies chosen are Brexit-supporting Tory donors. So the questions we're left with are, did we or did we not need 25,000 ventilators? What really went wrong with the procurement process that we didn't get them from a recognised supplier? While procuring them from Dyson, etc., was not done under normal circumstances, what due diligence, clarity, fairness did the process have? Personal protective equipment. With a flawed strategy in place, no borders closed, no screening or isolation for arriving travellers, it was no wonder that the UK developed one of the steepest infection and mortality rates in the world. This led to the situation where PPE supplies were scarce for frontline workers, most obviously NHS staff. There were some very innovative solutions to this, and we owe the army of 3D printer owners a massive vote of thanks. There have been many volunteers from all over the country manufacturing PPE in sheds and donating it to local frontline workers. Many people started fundraising efforts to provide them with the raw materials needed. It truly was magnificent to see, but it could never keep up with the demand. Whilst the usual procurement due diligence couldn't be applied in a time of crisis, the purchase of medical gowns from a Turkish t-shirt salesman was perhaps the most glaring procurement error of the UK government. An order for 400,000 medical gowns was placed towards the end of April. A deposit of £300,000 was forwarded. On the 3rd of May, they arrived and were found to be unfit for purpose. The whereabouts of the Turkish t-shirt salesman and the taxpayers' £300,000 are unknown. Meanwhile, the devolved nations continued to receive PPE from the sources they'd always used. NHS Scotland even bailed out NHS England at one point in the crisis with a large donation of PPE. but at least they're on the ball now. Well, maybe not. Whilst the 300k stolen by the Turkish t-shirt salesman was made very public, some other procurement deals were kept very quiet. Well, almost quiet. The UK government is currently facing a string of legal challenges about why it has awarded multi-million pound PPE contracts to, let's say, unusual choices. Under the astute leadership of Dominic Cummings, the Tory government are handing out contracts under the COVID Act with no procurement procedures or due diligence in place. Here is a list of some of the suppliers paid with public money for PPE that was never supplied. 252 million of public money to Ayanda Capital, registered in Mauritius for some reason, to supply PPE that never arrived. 186 million of public money given to Uniserve of Essex, the UK's largest privately owned logistics and global trade management company, for PPE that never appeared. 116 million of public money was given to P14 Medical Limited of Liverpool, which had liabilities exceeding assets up by £485,000 in December, with just £145 in the bank for PPE that never appeared. 108 million of public money given to Pestfix Limited, with 16 employees and net assets of £19,000 for PPE that never appeared. 14.2 million and a subsequent 93.2 million of public money given to Clandeboy Agencies Limited, a confectionery wholesaler in County Antrim, for PPE that never appeared. 40 million of public money given to Medicine Box Limited of Sutton and Ashfield, despite having assets of just £6,000 in March, for PPE that never appeared. 32 million and a subsequent 16 million of public money given to Initia Ventures Limited, who filed for dormancy in January this year, for PPE that never appeared. 28 million given to Monarch Acoustics Limited of Nottingham, makers of shop and office furniture, for PPE that never appeared. 25 million of public money given to Lux Lifestyle Limited to supply garments for biological or chemical protection to the National Health Service. According to Companies House, the business was incorporated by fashion designer Karen Brost in November 2018. It appears to have no employees, no assets and no turnover. 18.4 million of public money to Aventus Solutions Limited of Wilmslow, with just £322 in assets, for PPE that never appeared. £10 million of public money given to Medco Solutions Limited, incorporated on the 26th of March. That's 3 days after lockdown, with a share capital of just £2 for PPE that never appeared. 1.1 million of public money given to Bristol shoemaker Toffel Limited. It seemingly never supplied PPE whatsoever in the past, and for PPE that never appeared. 825,000 of public money given to MGP Advisory for as yet to be determined items or services. The company is described as a venture and development capital business that was in danger of being struck off the company's register for failing to file accounts. And in every case, no transparent bidding process. The 300k the Turkish guy robbed from them may be the most public mistake, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to the £831,525,000 divided up between the companies I've just gone through, who have so far provided nothing. You and I all know that if the Scottish Government ever did anything like this, there would be hell on. Questions. Will a PPE stockpile be rebuilt in case, I don't know, COVID-20 comes along? How robust will that procurement process be? Are taxpayers expected to pay for Westminster's corruption out of the public purse? Under normal rules, the above would constitute as fraud on a grand scale. So is this a government or is it a crime syndicate? To summarise, the UK government has bungled various supply deals of vital equipment desperately needed to save our lives. But it does seem that in the midst of the biggest peacetime crisis they've ever experienced, they did manage to at least maintain their obligations to their corporate donors like Deloitte, Dyson, JCB and Serco by ensuring that lucrative UK government contracts were awarded to them, regardless of their experience, ability to provide service, or whatever the non-monetary cost may be. So I suppose, in layman's terms, would you let this government do your shopping for you? I wouldn't. I reckon they'd blow all your wages in the most expensive shops they could find, buying stuff you didn't even need. I reckon you and your family would probably starve to death by midweek whilst they and their friends were having caviar on toast for breakfast. Log on next Monday, where I'll give my take on the much fabled contact tracing app. Play nicely, folks. The aim of this vlog is to generate discussion, debate, maybe even a little argument. I believe that civilised debate and argument generate the best ideas. The key word being civilised. I passionately believe in Scottish independence, but there are people who do not. Being a unionist is a legitimate position. I will not tolerate abuse, threats of any nature, sexism, racism, or any other bad isms being directed towards myself or other participants, whichever side of the debate they're coming from. Keep the debate on topic, civil and impersonal, and this should be a good forum for discussion. The page is mine. It's mine. It carries my name. I'll be the sole arbiter of what's acceptable on it and what is not. I will censor, delete comments of, or block independent supporters just as quickly as I would a unionist who can't or won't play nicely. So weigh in, folks, comment, oppose each other, but above all, be civil. Thanks very much. Stay tuned for my next post.